Hello, students, and welcome to the first part of our lecture on World War II, which is Chapter 15 in your textbooks. So World War II occurred between the years 1941 and 1945. These are the years that the United States was involved. We said in Chapter 14 that the first event that we can trace as being the start of World War II was 1931, when Japan invaded Manchuria in China. So section 1 is called The Allies Turn the Tide. So who were the Allies? Great Britain, France, the Soviet Union, and the United States. These were the main allies. The Axis powers, or the quote-unquote bad guys, were Germany, Italy, and Japan, the main powers for the Axis. So the Allies had a great advantage when it came to strategy because we had a unified goal and a unified strategy. We were all fighting for the same goal. We were all on the same team. The strategy for the Allies was called Europe First, which meant to defeat Hitler in Europe first, and then move on to defeating Japan in the Pacific. There's a couple reasons for this. Number one is that we felt like Hitler and his armies posed a greater threat, and we knew that it was going to be harder to take over and to defeat Japan because it was going to have a great cost and lives lost to try to invade the island nation of Japan and the islands around Japan. Now, the Axis powers did have a common enemy. The common enemy were the Allies. However, they had different goals. Each dictator had their own set of goals. Hitler wanted world domination. Mussolini wanted to recreate the Roman Empire. So they each had a different goal. They each wanted world domination, which was a major downfall for them. So how did we secure victory in this war? Well, just like in World War I, the United States secured victory in World War II. In Europe, a few things. The invention of radar helped us to defeat German U-boats in the Atlantic Ocean. The Battle of Stalingrad is looked at as the turning point of the war in Europe. This ended Hitler's plans of dominating Europe. This was the point from which he would never return. Hitler lost too many soldiers at the Battle of Stalingrad. This was the turning point of the war in Europe. Never again would Hitler have a legitimate chance of being successful in accomplishing his goals. How did we secure victory in North Africa? Well, number one, we had a couple great military generals, one being Dwight Eisenhower, whose nickname was Ike. He commanded the Allied invasion of North Africa. He was the mastermind of our attacks in North Africa. And then we have George S. Patton Jr. He was a tank commander in Africa. His nickname was Old Blood and Guts. And after you read the quote on page 469, you will see why. So please pause this and read that page at this time. Here's a couple pictures, one on the left of a young Dwight Eisenhower as he looked in World War II, and also of George S. Patton Jr. So unconditional surrender is a term that means that the loser will have to give up and the winners will make no concessions. In other words, the winners will write all of the terms of the surrender. This is the only thing that we would accept in World War II. We would not accept a conditional surrender, meaning that we would not negotiate. We wanted the Axis powers to surrender completely, and the Allies, us, set all the terms. We would only accept an unconditional surrender. Moving on to the Italian campaign. Eisenhower also commanded this campaign. It was a 38-day attack against Italy. And this did a few things. Number one, it gave us control of the Western Mediterranean, and by that we mean the Mediterranean Sea. If we controlled the Mediterranean Sea, the Axis powers would not be able to use that to transport troops and weapons and supplies back and forth. It also paved the way for a greater and more comprehensive invasion of Italy, whereby we could march into Rome, overtake the capital, and force them to surrender. This also ended the rule of Mussolini. Mussolini, by the way, and his wife were eventually hanged by the people and hung from a pole in public so it could be viewed by the public. In Germany, we had a couple of different bombing techniques, not only in Germany, but we use these techniques in other places. Those were saturation bombing and strategic bombing. These are two types of bombing. In saturation bombing, you drop as many bombs as you can to inflict as much damage as you possibly can. This is also known as carpet bombing, where you drop so many bombs it looks like you're laying carpet over the area. We also have what is called strategic bombing. This is when you target key political and industrial centers. In other words, very small targets, small amounts of bombs to destroy the target and get the job done. So we use both types, saturation bombing and strategic bombing. And that ends part one. Thank you for watching.